The spectroscope is an instrument by which the colors of the solar rays are separated and viewed, as well as those of other incandescent bodies. By it, not only the elements of the heavenly bodies have been determined, but remarkable results have been had in analyzing well-known metals and discovering new ones. Its powers and its principles have been so developed during the century by the discoveries, inventions and investigations of Herschel, Wollaston, Fraunhofer, Bronson and Kirchhoff, Steinheil, Tyndall, Huggins, Draper and others, that spectrum analysis has grown from the separation of light into its colors by the prism of Newton, to what Dr. Huggins has aptly termed, a new sense. Switzerland in watchmaking followed precisely the example of Germany in clockmaking. It commenced there in the 17th and culminated in the 19th century. Many thousands of its population were engaged in the business and it flourished under the fostering care of the government by the establishment of astronomical observations for testing the adjustment of the best watches, the giving of prizes, and the establishment and encouragement of schools of horology conducted on thorough scientific methods. A quarter of a century ago it was estimated that in Switzerland 40,000 persons out of a population of 150,000 were engaged in watchmaking and that the annual production sometimes reached 1,600,000 completed movements.
Children's natural desires lie primarily in the realm of sensation. New things to look at or new sounds to hear, especially when they involve the spectacle of action of a violent sort, will always divert the attention from abstract conceptions of objects verbally taken in. The grimace that one student makes, the spitballs that another is ready to throw, the dog fighting in the street, or the ringing of distant fire engine, these are the rivals with which the powers of the teacher to be interesting have to cope incessantly. The child will always be more concerned in what a teacher is doing than what the same teacher is saying. The children are relaxed and attentive during experiments or when the teacher is drawing on the blackboard. We think of money as one of the biggest inventions of mankind. With the widespread use of money, finance was born. Nowadays all the economies are financial. Their financial systems have grown in their size and complexity. We see a wide array of financial institutions trading in complex financial assets on interdependent financial markets with a single aim of bringing together savers and investors in their desire of making the best use of their wealth. Development of financial systems has thus become a close companion of general economic development. At the top of these financial systems are modern central banks with a difficult task of using money as a steering wheel between the dangers of inflation and recessions. Nutrition plays a critical role not only in child health and survival but also in driving economic prosperity for families and nations. It is encouraging to see increased attention from world leaders to address malnutrition in all its forms and in particular to reduce stunting everywhere. It will take continued efforts and dedication to ensure this progress continues. The Global Nutrition Summit will build on the legacy of Nutrition for Growth, the first ever global nutrition conference held in London in 2021, which mobilized over $4 billion for nutrition-specific projects, and $19 billion in nutrition-sensitive projects. The summit will foster dialogue around emerging issues such as cities as innovator hubs, sustainable food systems for optimal nutrition, and gender, health, and nutrition. The heart functions as a pump at the center of the circulatory system. In humans, it is located in the chest cavity, between the lungs, a bit to the left. The heart consists of 4 chambers surrounded by a very strong muscular wall, the myocardium. The upper chambers, the right and left atria, receive blood entering the heart, and the lower chambers, the right and left ventricles, pump the blood out of the heart, via the pulmonary and the systemic circulatory systems. The two systems work as follows. Blood from the body enters the right atrium, is passed into the right ventricle and from there is propelled through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. In the lungs the blood releases carbon dioxide and absorbs oxygen and is then transported back to the heart into the left atrium. Many people today think of culture in the way that it was thought of in Europe during the 18th and early 19th centuries. This concept of culture reflected inequalities within European societies and their colonies around the world. This understanding of culture equates culture with civilization and contrasts both with nature or non-civilization. According to this understanding of culture, some countries are more civilized than others, and some people are more cultured than others. Anything that doesn't fit into this category is labeled as chaos or anarchy. From this perspective, culture is closely tied to cultivation, which is the progressive refinement of human behavior.
In spite of all our planning and preparation, unexpected challenges are certain to arise. The bumps in the road are unavoidable, but you'll never get to your destination if you aren't willing to drive over them. The difference between a disaster and triumph lies in whether or not you're prepared and willing to weather the storm. If you're ready, those bumps will become stepping stones. The key thing to realize is that working harder is the same as working smarter. How do you work smarter? You just need to have the right skills. People want improved circumstances and better life without an improved self. They want victory without paying the price or making efforts. It really cannot happen without the other. The sparrows are some of the few birds that engage in dust bathing. Sparrows will first scratch a hole in the ground with their feet, then lie in it and fling dirt or sand over their bodies with flicks of their wings. Many birds, particularly game birds and sparrows, take dust baths as part of their regular preening. The dust helps dislodge parasites and absorbs excess preen oil so feathers are not heavily coated. Birds that do not bathe in water are more likely to use dust baths frequently, but many birds use both types of bathing. They will also bathe in water, or in dry or melting snow. Water bathing is similar to dust bathing, with the sparrow standing in shallow water and flicking water over its back with its wings, and also ducking its head under the water. The press also acts as a public court. All evils, corruptions, vices, scandals, etc. are given publicity and brought forth to the public through the medium of newspapers. The pressure of public opinion can be brought to bear upon the doers of evil and injustice. The oppressed and the downtrodden may easily demand justice at the bar of public opinion. Again, to build a nation, it becomes necessary to spread ideas of liberty and independence among the masses. The real freedom of a country is never possible without the upliftment of the people. Politicians as well as economists can circulate their ideas through newspapers, as they reach the most distant corners in the shortest possible time. Newspapers also tell people what their rights are and teach them how they can protect and exercise their rights. Computers are capable of doing extremely complicated work in all branches of learning. They can solve the most complex mathematical problems or put thousands of unrelated facts in order. These machines can be put to varied uses. For instance, they can provide information on the best way to prevent traffic jams. This whole process by which machines can be used to work for us has been called automation. In the future, automation may enable human beings to enjoy more leisure than they do today. The coming of automation is bound to have important social consequences. There is no possibility that human beings will be controlled by machines. Though computers are capable of learning from their mistakes and improving on their performance, they need detailed instructions from human beings to operate. In the lobby of Google's headquarters in Mountain View, California, computer screens display lists of the words being entered into the company's search engine. Although Google says the system is designed to filter out any scandalous or potentially compromising queries, the fact that even a fraction of searches can be seen by visitors to the world's biggest search company is likely to come as a shock to Internet users who think of web browsing as a private affair. That may be changing. Over the past year, a series of privacy gaffes and government attempts to gain access to Internet users' online histories have, along with consolidation among online search and advertising groups, thrust the issue of Internet privacy into the spotlight.
Good health is the soundness of body, mind and soul. It is that condition in which the body and mind duly discharge their functions. Good health helps everyone to be creative and work for the welfare of the society. He has to be, therefore, free from diseases, or, if he suffers from a disease, he needs treatments not only for that particular disease but for the whole body, mind and soul. In other words, a doctor has to have a sound approach to the patients. In these days of hectic life, full of stress, strain and emotions, everyone needs to lead a relaxed life. The best form of relaxation, according to Hedge, is sound sleep. Restful sleep at night will recharge our batteries for the following day's fruitful endeavor, he says. The intestinal liquid ventilation system provided therapeutic benefits to rodents and pigs exposed to non-lethal low oxygen conditions. Mice receiving intestinal ventilation could walk farther in a 10% oxygen chamber, and more oxygen reached their heart, compared to mice that did not receive intestinal ventilation. Similar results were evident in pigs. Intestinal liquid ventilation reversed skin pallor and coldness and increased their levels of oxygen, without producing obvious side effects. Taken together, the results show that this strategy is effective in providing oxygen that reaches circulation and alleviates respiratory failure symptoms in 2 mammalian model systems. Globalization and liberalization of the businesses in India have flooded the market with quality foreign products but has affected the local Indian industries adversely to a great extent, resulting in the job loss to poor and uneducated workers. Globalization has been a bonanza for the consumers, however, a loss to the small-scale Indian producers. Globalization has had some very positive effects on the Indian consumer in all sectors of society. It has affected the Indian students and education sector to a great extent by making study books and a lot of information available over the Internet. Collaboration of foreign universities with the Indian universities has brought about a huge change in the field of education. Scientists characterized how the electronic states in a compound containing iron, tellurium, and selenium depend on local chemical concentrations. They discovered that superconductivity, conducting electricity without resistance, along with distinct magnetic correlations, appears when the local concentration of iron is sufficiently low. A coexisting electronic state existing only at the surface, topological surface state, arises when the concentration of tellurium is sufficiently high. Reported in Nature Materials, their findings point to the composition range necessary for topological superconductivity. Topological superconductivity could enable more robust quantum computing, which promises to deliver exponential increases in processing power. Generation gap is generally seen in the family between parents and their children. It is not only because of the gap in age, but also because of the way parents react to a particular situation. Children being very young and immature do not understand the way of thinking of their parents. In many cases, the parents, even if they are matured, do not empathize with the changing values and thinking pattern of the modern world. This creates a communication gap between these two generations. Generation gap between parents and children is mostly caused by parents themselves. They do not talk openly to their children and do not take part in solving their problems. This behavior gives the impression about parents being authoritative persons, because they only dictate without understanding the problems faced by their children.